Hey, Blake T. Wilde here. Welcome to a new series I'm doing on the channel. It's called Cover to Cover, as you saw from the intro. This is a series I'm trying out where I look over a comic, discuss what I enjoy about it, from the art to the writing to the color, everything inside. I absolutely love comics. If you're new to my channel, hello. I typically do what I call read views of comic books, where I essentially recap what is happening in the story. I'll add cool voiceovers, sound effects, and my own opinions as this video goes on, and then at the end I kind of recap what I'm talking about. But I thought it would be fun to actually deep dive into the comics a little more so than I typically do. A way to really look at the process and think about the people who are actually making the comics, what goes into the storytelling of this medium. Because I love comic books. If you couldn't tell from this bookshelf filled to the brim with alphabetized single issues that I did by hand, by company, and then this bookshelf right here, which is just full of collections and trades and omnibuses that you can't see from that angle. And just, I love comics so much. It is just one of the most incredible mediums of storytelling, of art, and I just love what you can do with them. So I figured to share that love with the people. But I'm sure you can tell, I am not a professional in the comic book field. Not yet, at least. So obviously I'm not going to have 20-something years of experience to talk about via publishing houses and insider information, the behind-the-scenes, behind baseball kind of discussions that you might have. But I still make my own comics, and I have been for the past several years. I have my comic right here, The Custodians, Agents of Cross. Each issue of The Custodians, Agents of Cross is over 60 pages of pure comics, written, illustrated, colored, lettered, designed. Everything you see in these books was created entirely by myself. And this asks the all-important question, what if the only heroes that can save the world are an intelligent baboon, a girl who controls fire, the world's smartest man with the power of elasticity only in his right arm, and a four-armed werewolf? And this just follows their exploits. Like I said, it is a love letter to the 60s, Silver Age, and to all of comics in general. As you'll see as the series progresses to its 6th and final issue. This entire first issue, however, is posted in its entirety on my Patreon, patreon.com/Smokey'sVideos, where you can read the entire thing for only $2. Normally this book, I sell it for $15, which already is a far better deal than anything you're getting from Marvel or DC these days. But as little as $2 a month, you can get access to the entire issue. And I am serializing issue 2 as we speak. But that's not all, because I also have my sci-fi, zany, just crazy fun series, fun for the whole family, all-age comic, Destructo Boy. Destructo Boy follows this little robot guy right here as he lives on a giant space station in the far-flung future, and he battles crime, giant robots, giant monsters, and evil conquerors from space such as Grimlax the Astro Knight. Each of these issues just introduces as much zany sci-fi craziness as I could fit into these books. They're being serialized on my Patreon as I speak as well, and you can pick up all 5 issues on my Etsy shop, blaketwilde.etsy.com. Each purchase comes with a free head sketch of any character of your choosing. But you can get all of this. Look how thick that fucking book is. For only $2. Either deal is far better than anything you'd get from Marvel or DC these days. But with that whole hoo-ha out of the way, let's get right into the Squadron Supreme issue. This is issue 2, of course. Fantastic cover, very reminiscent of Silver Age comic issues. It's almost exactly a recreation, just with some extra people added in, of Justice League of America number 21, where the Justice League of the main universe crosses over with Justice League of Earth 2. The poses are pretty much the same. Not looking at it, I want to say this might be a full-on swipe, if you will. I hate that word because it seems like it's such a negative connotation. But it is just a fantastic-looking cover. and it even has the beautiful dialogue box atop of it, which is Hyperion, the Superman analog, shouting, "If you dare attack Earth now in its darkest hour, Scarlet Centurion, I'll kill you with my bare hands." Scarlet Centurion, of course, is a version of Kang the Conqueror. This is a version of Kang the Conqueror. This is one that got sent here somehow or whatever, and never became any other versions of him. He's always just been Scarlet Centurion. But let's get right into it. Here, of course, is the Reach for the Stars advertisement for the Young Astronaut program. I always really dig seeing this ad. This ad just makes me feel for the 80s. It's a very 1980s ad. Just the sort of follow-up to the space race, which is, yeah, we're in space now, bitches. So here we go right away. Written by Mark Gruenwald, penciled by Bob Hall, inks by John Beatty, letters by Janice Chang, and colors by Christy Scheel. So right off the bat, we see these heroes. It has been a month. So that's something I don't think I properly explained in the last video covering the first issue of this, is that this series occurs in real time. It's one of the few comics that does that. It works perfectly. I don't have an issue with it at all. But that means that each month that passes in our world when this was releasing is a month that passes in this two-dimensional pocket universe world hidden within this comic book. So it has been a month since the Squadron Supreme announced that they were enacting their Utopia project or program to save the world from itself, essentially. This is the first of, I feel, two-chapter story arc of the Tom Thumb saga. This right here is Tom Thumb. He's a dwarf. He's hanging out with Golden Archer and Dr. Spectrum as they deliver rations to just across the country. They land in a parking lot of a JCPenney. I miss the times where you could actually add actual proper logos and businesses like that. Well, I guess they don't really. It's very heavily implied, though. What else would that be? It looks like a JCPenney. They are arriving to just deliver all of these. Look at this. It's just a really cool depiction of the power prism, which is what Doc Spectrum uses. He still has his cape at this point. I don't care for the cape, but that's neither here nor there. He is just, Bob Hall is really showing just how giant this actually is. One, by depicting the figures of Tom Thumb and Golden Archer riding atop of it and how small they are in comparison, but also by just breaking these panel borders. Just the immense size of these crates of food rations and whatever else they're hauling across the country. It's just a very fantastic depiction of it. They're met by the mayor, who invites them up to have speak some words. More beautiful coloring by Christy Scheel, especially here when Tom Thumb gets angry because Dr. Spectrum, Golden Archer, they're very commercial, I suppose you could say. They're handsome white men in the 80s who are muscular and jacked. And Tom Thumb is a long-haired, bearded man, because they're all freaks, who is also a dwarf. And we see right here in this first top panel, just random people say, "Hey, that one's called Thumbelina." And these two guys snickering to themselves, as, you know, Tom Thumb does notice it. Just great cartooning by Bob Hall. We also, you know, it's just the stuff that just depicting Tom Thumb as a dwarf is just so well done, because we see he has to like haul himself up to get on the truck. It almost looks like he's reaching to like for Golden Archer to help him up by this hand just raised that much, because if it wasn't raised that much, it'd be sort of like positioning it like this, I'd imagine. Like, you know, horizontally on the truck and then using this hand to lift him up. But this one, he's reaching up for help, which isn't provided to him. Because as we'll learn as this series goes on, outside of like Hyperion and like probably Nighthawk, maybe Princess Power Princess. Nobody cares about Tom Thumb. They don't really like him. But anyway, they speak their spiel and talk about it. We're going to make America better than ever. And then he smugly hands it over Tom Thumb's head as he tries to reach for it. And this is fantastic right here, this lettering choice. It wouldn't surprise me if it was Mark Gruenwald specifically noted this. But if it wasn't, goddamn, good job. What was his name? Who's the letter? Janice Chang. Because it's lowercase. That D, that U, that H, the N, everything. It's lowercase compared to everything else. He's saying it under his breath. The only way that could become more clear, I feel, is if they had just made it a little bigger, added some more white around the letters itself, just to make them a little smaller. So it's like, oh, don't I? You know, he's very quiet, and then he gets literally overlooked. Then, unfortunately, they are alerted, or interrupted, rather, by these three dudes who pop up and take the mayor hostage and announce themselves as Freedom Force. They order the heroes to drop their weapons, really paying no attention to Tom Thumb, who announces he doesn't carry any weapons. And the ringleader, it kind of looks like Patrick Wilson, says that do you deny that you people sanctioned the concentration camps opened by that traitorous scum President Richards or Richmond? I think I was saying Richards before, maybe. So, you know, they're here to enact justice against what was happening in the world when Overmind was in charge. God damn it. This is just, what is this? Twizzlers ad, what the fuck? Just add a long nose and a big white face and you got a pretty good looking Joker mouth. But they take the three squadroneers hostage. They march them out into the opening, and they're prepared to execute them. Another just genius coloring work by Christy Shield. I don't understand why this isn't done more often anymore. I assume it has something to do with maybe just the fact that everything's digital and you can really just play with gradients and all this and that. And you want everything to stick out. But just all these characters being blue, just that solid color, and even down here, it signifies just, one, that they're together, that they are, you know, all combined in some way, and two, how fucked our heroes pretty much are, because they're surrounded by this blue. One of them grabs the power prism, but it comes to life, and we get like a really heinous looking Dr. Spectrum. Just wow. Does just between what Bob Hall and John Beatty do with the art and Christy Shield on the colors, just look how just bright that whites of his eyes are, how manic his expression is. Just, wow. And this face just, it's like Jack Kirby if it was like, you know, sort of more realistic looking, more refined, I suppose. And I really dig the line work on the power prism, at least when it's shooting through, it's like the prism itself is moving. It's these very hectic little tick lines going through, and even the circle of like the power exploding and cracking this gun in half, and just the detail of it as well. Look, we see the bullets flying out of the revolver. Just so great. It just, oh, how cool is that? And then it flies back to Dr. Spectrum. And I love that the line, the motion line is also color coordinated to Golden Archer. So they handedly just defeat these guys and you know, make quick work of them, and then they head out as Tom Thumb just has to watch. He can't really do anything. And we see here he's some hero I am. They treat me like I'm not even there. Because they aren't. They are just they are talking to each other. Tom Thumb, they may as well have forgotten them all for all intents and purposes. Cut to southern Winnebago which I guess is probably like somewhere up north, maybe like South Dakota, Michigan, Wisconsin. I don't know. I get a Wisconsin vibe from it. I don't know why. But Nuke and Whizzer are doing their thing. They're like kind of just going about their daily assignments. I think they're done heading back to base. But Nuke breaks off, tells Whizzer that he'll be late to their meeting, and he returns and meets his parents, who in this past month have taken a grave turn. And he asks what happened, because his parents never revealed to him why they've been in the hospital for so long. And they reveal that it is radiation poisoning. Oh, hey, look. What a perfect page turn from his parents dying of radiation poisoning and cancer to the Heavenly Kid. Anyway, Squadron Supreme headquarters, 9 o'clock. They have their nightly meeting. Everybody sort of goes over what happened throughout the day. Hyperion and Zarda are... also, Zarda, I didn't bring this up the first time. I did bring up the fact that her and her husband have a very sort of Big Barda, Mr. Miracle relationship, just based on the height and like what they look like. But Barda, come on. But anyway, they plan on meeting the new president, incoming president, next week or like sometime soon. Whizzer and Nuke made sure that all of the internment camps were evacuated and that food was delivered to the nation's prisons. Tom Thumb recounts that natural gas and electrical power is being restored, about 95% of it across the country, and the rest should be operational by the end of the week. And then Spectrum reveals, what happened to him today. And as Hyperion plans for the disarmament program, what should appear above them but the holographic form of the Nesquik bunny. But the holographic form of Scarlet Centurion, who begins his villainous ramblings, and he's just interrupted when Hyperion flies up, threatens to murder him, and trying to save face, he says, "Bah, you take all the pleasure out of conquest. I will call back my legions. I'd rather not take over a world that's in ruin." And he fades away. He's like, yeah, sure, that's why you're not going to invade. Not because the man who can do anything threatened to murder you if you decided to show up. So they continue their whole ordeal, and they call it a night for the meetings. Blue Eagle, as he's now going by, asks about Kyle Richmond, Nighthawk, and Hyperion reveals that he's just been missing for the past month. He hasn't seen him since that press conference in the first issue. And then this great scene that just depicts action happening over the course of these 4 panels is, funnily enough, they get smaller and smaller. We follow Tom Thumb as no one notices that he gets up from his seat and leaves, as everybody else just sort of hangs out, chats, and they start to play poker. That's another thing about these superheroes, is that they're just, they need some off time. So later in the book, Lady Lark will invite Nuke to play charades, and Tom Thumb, meanwhile, goes to his workshop. This fun little bit of cartooning where he just kicks this little random thing that's lying in the way, as he laments being the odd man out, and he meets his only friend in the world, his only partner, Ada, who asks him what happened. He recounts what went on today and says that he just wants to hang out and just chill out in his lab, his safe space, just relax and just work on his projects in his workshop. Later that night, like pretty late on, since everybody else is asleep, aside from Tom, Nuke rocks up, and Nuke asks him if his energy levels could be increasing. Tom Thumb, hey, let's put it to the test. This is an interesting aspect right here, because it's almost Kirby tech. Like, it's that classic idea of Jack Kirby pretty much invents something new on every goddamn page, but it's such an abstract, sleek design. It's like the next, technological step beyond a Jack Kirby's technology. It's this special power energy analyzer that only shows up for this 2 panels. And Nuke just blasts into it, and Ada reads out the readings, and he has increased his nuclear energy by 52%, which is not good. And Nuke confides in Tom that his parents are dying of cancer, and he believes it's his fault, and begs Tom to help him. Just a slow but hectic page that leads into this just manic young man's face as he just has... Nuke is very much, for lack of better terms, I'll say he has a sort of toxic masculinity. He's a very aggressive, sort of might makes right kind of guy. And for him to confide in Tom like this is really breaking down that barrier, but he still does so in a way that is very abrasive. And this panel at the end where he pleads with Tom, he grabs him and like lifts him up and says, "Find a cure for cancer. You can do it, Tom. You're the only one in the world that's smart enough. You can find a cure for cancer." Tom Thumb is shocked by this, but he says that he'll look into it and try what he can. And Nuke just drops his whole masculine facade for a second and just hugs Tom and says, just repeatedly thanks him, and that he'll never forget him for doing this, and that he's the best. And then it just immediately goes back to who Nuke is. Whizzer also notes that earlier when Nuke leaves him while they're running around America. He's like, "Oh, Nuke's too much of like a young rebel hothead guy to confide in me." So the fact that he is confiding in Tom Thumb, of all people, really sort of says something about where he's at. And Tom Thumb just sort of asks Ada what he just did. Ada tells him he promised something that people say is impossible, but Tom Thumb says that he will find a way. And then these fast little panels right here, just almost an animation. It's it reminds me of that classic The Evolution of Man. You know, it's like ape, caveman, Neanderthal, human sort of thing, but it's Tom being awoken by Hyperion, Tom asking Hyperion to take time off from field work, also preparing himself some coffee, and then Tom Thumb fully erect, standing at his workshop computer, coffee right here, as he orders Ada to prevent him from sleeping. And later, at the George Orwell Bridge between New Wesley and New Troy, which is just a fantastic establishing shot of a panel. It's so cool. Even like, look at this. Look at what a great way to do this, because you're drawing a bridge which has all these suspension wires and everything going through it. How do you draw this massive convoy of box trucks that is going through, of semi-trucks, of lorries, if you will? Because if you give them, these are very small detailed, but if you give them that same level of detail back here, then it's going to get muddied. It's not going to read well. It'll be hard to tell where one line ends and the other begins. So Bob Hall just fucking goes in and just does pure outlines. And Christy Shield, not wanting to drive the eye away from the colorful main characters, understands that and keeps it all this flat blue color. It really evokes the sense, oh, we're like near a waterfront. It's morning probably during the day. Even, I love this right here, which is Nuke is flying behind them, since I don't know why Blue Eagle is flying. I guess it's just to keep Lady Lark company, but he's flying alongside. And there is, again, there's cyan that has been added to this yellow back here to enhance the fact that either that's being pushed back is what it does to begin with, but it also implies that as Nuke was rounding this bridge, he flew under it, and like the chemtrail, whatever, of his nuclear energy is shaded beneath the George Orwell Bridge. And it's just so much thought gets put into these single little bits and pieces here and there. That's a big thing about why I wanted to do this series, is that I can't help but feel that just far too many people who maybe watch YouTube videos about the comics, they just watch them as these are products that are completed. Too many people just sort of look at just art in general, let alone comics, and just think, wow, that's something that must have just exist. It just came out of nowhere. There's not a whole team of people working on it. In my case, there's not one person working on it, trying to make it look like there's a team of people working on it. But I really wanted to just discuss things like this and really bring it to people's attention, just how fascinating and incredible the medium is. Continuing on, they have a little chat. Nuke launches his warning signal that shit's going down. A mob has... Fucking look at these people! Where did they come from? How did they not notice them? But they are racing to the food trucks, trying to overthrow them. Lady Lark uses her sonic voice to tell them to stand down and pick up food at the Central Park drop-off, which I guess, for all the changes, it's still called Central Park. It doesn't work. And then we get to see more of Nuke's anger, especially, like, he's already an angry guy to begin with, like I said earlier, but now his parents are dying, and he just unloads on these poor fucking people. Look at this hectic panel. Oh my god, this could just, itself is just a work of art, between the frantic stampede of just horrified, hungry individuals, and just the contrast from here. Look at how they make the just bright day of the clouds noticeable, the truck, everybody is colored separately to stand out, at least in the foreground. Nuke comes fucking rolling in with glowing hands that look like the eyes of like a dragon that's coming towards them. And that dragon spurts out its chaotic nuclear fire at them. And suddenly the color is all gone. It's burning orange and yellows. And people are in terror. They're stomping over each other. They're trying to get out of the way. This guy yells, "It's that nuclear guy! He's whipping up a cloud of fallout! Run for your lives! Help, he's gone mad!" Just chaos breaks out because of what Nuke is doing. And Lady Lark notices this and is like, what the fuck is wrong with him? Uses her sonic blast to fucking like scramble his brain or something, and he falls and is caught by Blue Eagle. And like a child who knows that he did wrong, he begs, like, it's like you're hanging out with like your friends and your kids, and like you get into an argument or something, you maybe like push one of them, your friend, or like you hit him in the arm or something, you hurt him, and they get upset. And then you're like, no, please don't tell, I'm sorry. He does exactly that. It's a small, just one sentence in one panel right here, but it just encapsulates that is who Nuke is. He's still this immature, brash, just wants to be a macho superhero. Ooh, look at this, Transformers on video cassette. Later, Nuke is relieved that Blue Eagle and Lady Lark decide to keep quiet on his whole accident. And then he meets up with Tom Thumb, who provides him with this new Nuke suit. But here's another example of just depicting the trials and tribulations that Tom Thumb has to deal with being a dwarf. He has to climb up onto his stool as he tells Nuke that now that they have the prevention taken care of, this new suit that'll, you know, keep him from leaking radiation, he can start focusing on the whole cancer thing. And in his bedroom, his quarters somewhere, Nuke is putting on the new costume, which Tom Thumb has ordered him to wear whenever he's around people, so pretty much all the time. He says, "Blasted midget! This thing looks like a bunch of vacuum cleaner bags stitched together. Still, I'd better wear it, I guess. All I've got to say is if Tom Thumb fails me where it counts, oh, I wouldn't want to be in his shoes." So, just immediately, he just has no care in the world. He doesn't give a shit about Tom Thumb unless Tom Thumb can help him. Lady Lark comes up, and this is where they're talking about charades, but Nuke declines. And meanwhile, in the lab, Tom Thumb has Ada run some cell samples from his body so that he can have like clean cells to compare to Nuke's parents. 8 days later, Nuke comes by, asks Tom how it's going. He says that his parents are getting worse, and he asks if he's like, have you made that breakthrough yet? Tom gets angry and says that he needs more goddamn time, and he smashes the clock, and he's like, I need more time! That's it. Time! And he heads down to the storage room where they have all the stuff from the satellite base that crashed, and he finds the transtemporal Soma projector. Another just item straight out of like a Jack Kirby comic, which takes him to the future of the Scarlet Centurion in the 40th century. And it's such an insane just depiction of just like, look at his costume. It makes sense based on what the fuck his costume looks like. Like, what else would you expect from a dude who dresses like that to have his home century look like? Like, just these insane, like, what even is this? How the fuck does this woman get this bikini on? Tom Thumb, I do like that he appears about 5 feet into the air, kind of implying that, you know, he time travels to a different location that is physically going to be lower than where he is at now. Or I also like to imagine that, knowing Scarlet Centurion, whatever, he might have just built this on the base that the Squadron Supreme use. And this is where Tom Thumb's place would just happen to be, but it's this giant courtroom for the Scarlet Centurion. So, like, in the past, that's where Tom Thumb was standing, and now he drops. He demands to have words alone with the Emperor of the 40th century, and he also has... Here's an interesting note. Like I discussed in the first episode, this is a year before Watchmen comes out. What does the villain have as a pet but a strange, almost alien, giant cat? What a coincidence. So Tom Thumb begins speaking to Scarlet Centurion, and he says that he's come to make a bargain with him. And Tom Thumb asks if they have cured cancer, because in a previous exploit, when the Scarlet Centurion showed up, he said that he ran out of challenges in his home century, so that's why he is going into the past to fight the Squadron Supreme, the greatest heroes of all time. And he reveals to Tom Thumb that they cured cancer decades ago. It was just a fun thing that he decided to do, pretty much, is the implication of it. And I love this. Like, what an insane design for a throne. It's literally... Tom says that he's going to make a deal with the devil. He is dressed pretty much clad in red and crimson. He's scarlet. He's called the Scarlet Centurion. And just, it's almost like almost a devil's tail in a way. It's almost closer to maybe a scorpion or a claw. It's obviously closer to a claw, but I'm just saying like where it comes out at from the back because it's a seat. But it's just this claw that's like closing in on Tom Thumb as he's discussing further and making this like agreement with Scarlet Centurion. He calls this little robot that just immediately shows up with the Panacea potion, which the Scarlet Centurion had developed at his request. Just sort of solves every ailment known to man, all diseases, age, everything like that. It's Idun's apples, golden apples. If you're familiar with Norse mythology, the apples of Idun is how the Norse gods, the Aesir, were able to keep their youth and everything like that. It's pretty much, there you go. He brings it out, and he says that in return for a small sample of the potion, he wants Tom Thumb to bring back ground argonite in a little capsule. And then Tom shouts, "I won't kill Hyperion for you." To which Scarlet Centurion reveals, hey, no. It's not going to kill him. It's just going to weaken him a bit until I can fuck him up. And hey, who's to say what happens after that? But Tom Thumb refuses, and then we get right here the title of this comic called A Small Sacrifice. And Tom Thumb curses him and curses himself as he teleports back to his time. He arrives back crying. Ada asks what happened. He says he failed. That was his last hope, because he discovered that he cannot cure cancer. It is very much impossible at this time. Even the world's smartest man, Tom Thumb, could not do it. And he sits down and sobs and cries himself to sleep. And the next morning, Nuke shows up, wakes him up. Tom Thumb just jumps up, awake, is frightened, probably having nightmares. And he says that he can't do it, and he apologizes. And Nuke just fucking loses it on him. He calls him a misshapen little creep who failed him after Nuke was counting on him. And he says that when his parents die, it'll be Tom's fault, not his. So, there's a lot of projecting going on. And he will make Tom pay as he flies out. And Tom Thumb sits alone. And it's at this reveal, this dark moment. This is yet another, if I go back. Oh, I did it perfectly. It's almost a reverse. It is a reverse of what we saw previously with Tom Thumb, where it started pretty big and then worked small to focus on him. Start the focus on Tom and then get back and keep going out. Of Tom revealing to, I suppose, himself, obviously to the reader, but just another chance at just making this a reality to himself and something that he has to come to, is that he too is dying of cancer. And then we get an advertisement for Secret Wars 2. And in a kid's shoe called Ripoffs. Wow. Why would you call your shoe that? But that is issue 2 in a 12-issue limited series, Squadron Supreme, A Small Sacrifice. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know what you thought in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content just like this if you made it through the whole thing. I hope you enjoy these little read-throughs of the comics that I am going through. These are pretty fun to do. Like I said at the top, I'm really enjoying, providing some more insight and my thoughts on the actual comics rather than just recapping them to people. Of course, if you have any suggestions or anything, let me know in the comments below. As always, follow me on Instagram at NotBlakeWilde for my art. Check out my Patreon. Check out my Etsy shop for posters and comics there as well. And I will see you next time when I go cover to cover. Bye!